Welcome back to Truck Tech, everyone. This is the special edition called Making the Switch. It's our 5th episode now where we have begun to look at the ecosystem surrounding natural gas, both compressed natural gas and renewable natural gas. Today, we're going to focus on the infrastructure around both. We're going to talk with Derek Turbine, who's the Vice President of Sales for Clean Energy Fuels, as well as with Scott Edelbach, who is the Executive Vice President of Opal Fuels. Clean Energy Fuels does both things here in Woodhaven, Michigan. They have this public fast fuel station, as well as a behind-the-fence operation that is more of a timed fill for trucks that become, park, and be filled on a slower basis, maybe for a little better efficiency. We're going to talk with both of these gentlemen and show you a little bit of what's happening here south of Detroit around natural gas. Hope you enjoy the episode. So I'm here with Derek Turbine, who is the Vice President of Clean Energy in the trucking space. You could describe that a very number of ways.
Sure.
But you've been around this company for a while. You've kind of grown up with the whole natural gas business. Now we're getting into renewable natural gas. That's sort of the focus of your company, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Is upstream renewable natural gas fuel development. So we not only invest in renewable natural gas digesters at dairy farms and landfills and wastewater treatment plants, where you're basically harvesting methane that would otherwise be released in the environment. We clean that up, we put it into the pipeline, and then we can allocate it to any of our stations across the country. The station network we've been building out for nearly 30 years now.
Natural gas stations and natural gas adoption itself is something that, kind of come and gone, but it's always been kind of a 1% to 2% kind of play in the trucking business. Now we're seeing something new coming with an engine that actually has the oomph and the torque to really get consideration, open up that pie to a bigger slice, right?
Absolutely.
This has got to be an exciting time in terms of thinking expansion and that sort of thing. What are your plans?
Yeah, absolutely. It changes the industry a little bit, right? You can actually take this truck, it'll go well over 700 miles. They're putting CNG systems on them that will do over 1,000 miles between fills. So that combined with the power of a 15-liter engine and 500 horsepower, it's going to be able to go nationwide, which is kind of how we started 10 years or so, kind of trying to roll out our trucking stations. Didn't happen as fast as we wanted, but we've got the right product now. And, we're going to be growing at a clip of, probably 10% of the stations a year to fuel those trucks as you start to roll out.
It's funny you mentioned 10% because there's been estimates actually from Cummins itself that this could be a 10% player in the engine space because of the opportunity. Whether that comes to pass or not, we're definitely going to leave that relatively small penetration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you work on station development for public fleets, how are customers, fleets able to know where they can basically use public fueling?
Sure. So there's all kinds of maps out there. Clean Energy has its own with all of our own stations, LNG, CNG stations. And we've got about 200 tractor trailer friendly stations today across the country. Most of them along your major trucking corridors. Now we don't have one on every corner, but we're growing that network, and it's that old chicken and the egg thing, right? These are multi-million-dollar investments we're putting in these stations, so we want to make sure that we've got customers to fuel at those stations, and it only takes around 20 or so trucks to get a new station going.
Really?
So the investment from a fleet is rather minimal as far as these bigger fleets' size goes.
So you can, of course, at 700 or 1,000 miles, I can go coast to coast, right? Just using what you have today.
You can.
Is that right?
Yeah, we're not at every truck stop, but
Yeah.
we are at some truck stops,
Yeah.
and we'll be at more truck stops in the future.
We need to talk about RNG in a little different way, and I didn't realize, but it's interesting to know that you really do sort of go all the way from the dairy waste, if you will, right to the RNG. How is it that, we've heard net zero carbon from this, and that's something that is kind of impressive, and it's also got a little bit of unbelievability to it, simply because how could that be? Maybe you can help us with that carbon intensity.
Yeah,
equation.
like I mentioned earlier, we're basically trapping methane from ever entering the atmosphere. So when you're doing that, you're taking potential methane or carbon emissions out of the environment.
Right.
And you can count that. So that's how you get to that negative carbon emissions rating. Now, those are all from your dairy farm type projects where they're not regulated, so they have that methane emissions if they're not doing something to capture it.
Right.
So that's how you get the negative or net zero carbon.
So, Derek, the penetration of RNG right now is really quite impressive. It's almost 100% in California, close to 80% nationally. That's a pretty good market to be able to go off and sell from, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we've got vast, abundant potential beyond that. So for the foreseeable future, renewable natural gas is going to be the way that CNG or LNG fleets are going out there.
What do you see? Doubling it over the next few years, maybe? And on the way to what?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. If we can surpass that billion-gallon mark as an industry, and that half a billion-gallon mark as clean energy, we're on the right road to somewhere to do that.
Where are we headed long term in terms of availability? I think you've used a figure of what's potential out there.
Yeah. So there's nearly 40 billion gallons of RNG potential out there across the United States. So we've got a long way to go before we use all of our renewable natural gas resources.
Well, we have a lot of cows, so that's going to help.
A lot
right?
of cows,
Yeah.
a lot of landfills, a lot of other farms and wastewater treatment plants.
Sure.
A lot of methane out there. We're about a 400 million gallon company a year, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that day. We can get to a billion.
Derek, you mentioned a couple times that natural gas has been plentiful. It's an export product and everything else, and it's been plentiful, and the price is generally pretty good.
Yep.
We have enough of it that there's really no reason to fear some kind of spike like you occasionally see with diesel. And obviously electrification is very expensive, and availability and grid and things like that. So do you have kind of that sweet spot for availability and price that, kind of price protection in a way? Not maybe that's not the right word, but
Yeah. Our customers are regularly fueling for around, $2 a diesel gallon equivalent, give or take. That's kind of that sweet spot where they can start to make the math really work for their own operation in TCO historically. And for bigger fleets, they're fueling for even less than that. Somebody that has their own fueling station, sometimes they could be fueling for near to nothing because all these credits that are available and investing in their own infrastructure, driving their own costs down. So there's a number of different ways you can get there,
Sure.
whether it be public or private.
Let's talk quickly about sort of maybe not credits, but incentives. There's lots of incentives around electrification. How about in your space?
Yep, and they certainly help in the RNG truck space too, because the trucks are a little bit more expensive. So state by state, probably half of the states across the country have their own grant programs. Natural gas trucks are eligible for those. In addition to that, we even do our own kind of grant programs at Clean Energy in California, just to help our customers get into the trucks and then ultimately fuel them at our stations. So we'll actually help buy down the trucks too.
Yeah. If 98%, virtually all of the natural gas in California is RNG, and 70% or 69% nationally, is that pretty much a market that's as solid as it gets, isn't it?
Absolutely. We've got the supply out there to go 100% across the country for the foreseeable future. So it's really a fantastic way to go as far as carbon emission reductions and then meeting the operational needs of fleets.
Yeah. We talked with Kenworth, which is the first to get the new engine out there to customers, and the enthusiasm is palpable. Derek, thank you very much. Great to see you. Good to have you with us.
Always a pleasure.
If this was a typical diesel or gasoline station, you wouldn't see all the pipelines and utility equipment that goes along with the clean energy station here in Woodhaven, Michigan. These stations involve a lot of collaboration between the station developer, the transfer of natural gas from pipelines that could be hundreds of miles away, and the power needed to keep them operating. Of course, the truck driver filling with natural gas, either at the fast fill pumps at the station or on a time basis beyond the fence, doesn't interact with any of this. Filling up with natural gas is as easy as diesel, and the station canopy is tall enough to allow the tractor and trailer to pull easily in and out. Rashad Zebek tells us more about the station. Rashad Zebek, you are the regional sales manager for the Midwest for Clean Energy. This station is relatively new.
It is. It's just, I would say, over a year old now. The station is a public fast fill site up front, and then behind the fence, private time fill specific for Amazon. But obviously, with the public fast fill, we're really able to drive volume to this location.
And how is that working? Are you starting to see more uptake of
Yeah.
the product?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what they say, if you build it, they'll come. So we built it and definitely getting some traction here with the local fleets, driving volumes here to the site. Absolutely.
I understand it takes about 25 trucks, maybe 7,000 gallons a truck to make one of these work.
Yeah.
Are you hitting that number?
Oh, absolutely. So on average, that's the numbers we're seeing, but obviously it just depends on your volumes that you're driving per year with the trucks. So if you're a higher mileage fleet, you can get away with a station build with less trucks. But of course, just depending on volumes when it comes to mileage.
But Derek Turbine explained what the potential for natural gas is. Could be up to 40 billion gallons not too long from now. But what we're really looking at right now is the two types of stations that we have. We've got the public fast fill, and we also have a behind the fence timed fill operation like Amazon does here. The Amazon operation allows drivers to come in, park their personal vehicles, and take their trucks out and then bring them back for filling overnight or until the next shift. We're going to talk with Scott Edelbach about how to plan for and implement a behind the fence operation, all the way from what's needed in the beginning to planning for volume and ultimately for phasing out diesel trucks that could be replaced by natural gas trucks. I'm with Scott Edelbach. Scott is the executive vice president of Opal Fuels. Opal Fuels is a rather large and I think historic operation in terms of doing renewable natural gas, all natural gas really, but we're going to talk renewable and we're going to talk about it in one of the two ways that it really goes out there. There's public stations and there's behind the fence operations. You're mostly behind the fence, right?
That is correct. Typically, truck fleets are either going to fill at truck stops publicly, or they're going to have fuel delivered to them in bulk trailers behind the fence to fill their trucks. And they typically are doing that to save money, lower costs in the fuel, but provide efficiency for their drivers. Our customers typically have a need or a want or a contract that drives them to move to natural gas. They're trying to save money, they're trying to improve their sustainability numbers, reduce their carbon, and they want to deploy pretty quickly. They may have a contract that requires them to deploy their trucks and their assets in 12 months or less, and that's pretty typical. And that's typically our target with all of our deployments.
And it is turnkey, I take it. I mean, when you do this, if they say I want a station because I've got X number of trucks, we should talk about that, and we will in a moment. How many trucks makes it worth it to do your own behind the fence operation? What makes sense? What's the business case for doing this?
So typically as a general fleet, we look for a couple of things. One is we want 7,000 gallons a year of fuel consumption per truck asset that they've got, and really a minimum of about 25 trucks. If we have that number, we can make the deployment of a station behind the fence economical for the customer, and economical for us as well. It's a feasible project to deploy. Anything underneath that, the biggest challenge we have in the industry is the incremental cost that the customer has with the truck itself, the fuel system. The engine typically can run 40 to 80%, additional incremental cost over that diesel that they're currently buying today, right? To get that money back, and that's what they're all trying to do is save money along with providing a net zero environmental experience that's better than diesel in their applications. They've got to save money ultimately at the end of the day. And to do that, we need to have enough gallon burn with that truck to pay for that additional cost that the customer is going to overcome. The 12-liter product has been great over the years, and as long as it's spec'd correctly, it works well for customers. The 15-liter, however, because of its design, does give us more power, more range, more opportunity to sell to more fleets, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of the speccing the truck correctly with all the OEM dealers across the country. So we do believe that we're going to have a lot of success with it. Over the next 12 months, I think that market's going to level out, and we're going to see price parity or a lot closer to diesel than what it is currently today. We have literally thousands of trucks that are needed to be replaced in the field right now. The slots aren't there. We do have some headwinds with that, right? It's not the the golden ticket by any means, but there's still a ton of opportunity in this space to focus on areas where the current engine configurations, the OEMs putting them in, are awesome solutions for our customers. And there's endless amounts of applications where that works. We typically are going to see all of our customers with that mainstream product line getting returns on their incremental capital that they're spending in 30% of the useful life of that asset. So they're going to get a great payback on this,
Right.
and we can generally find a way to do that for them. So.
Yeah, I mean, that entire picture, that financial picture that you're talking about, you pretty much have to, I guess, address all of that when you're talking about this. I mean, because this is an add-on to, say, buying 10 trucks or whatever, 25 trucks. Let's call it 25.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now we're talking what, 2 to 5 million to do
2 to 5 million for station infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And again, fairly readily available at most every fleet's application, their sites. Permitting is not generally a problem with most people. Gas utilities, electric utilities, not a problem. Yeah, typically most utilities in most parts of the country, we can have all the gas and electric utilities in place from that local utility supplier in less than 12 months. To make all this work out, the customer has to see value in the conversion process, and they have to see a pathway to get the truck spec correctly, get the trucks delivered to them in a timely manner, not to impact their operation, and really see that financial payback. And they need to see it right away. This isn't necessarily a challenge of infrastructure and new CNG trucks or RNG trucks. This is always more of a challenge of what do I do with this existing 100 truck diesel fleet? How do I get rid of this? I might have 10 years worth of different lease and finance structures with all this different paper. How do I unwind all of that paper in my operation and deploy? But if I'm deploying $5 million, my customer is deploying $50 million in new truck assets to make all this work. That is the biggest challenge we have, and I think the industry has as a whole, and all of the alternative fuel spaces will have that. How do I get rid of that current diesel asset infrastructure that I've got, vehicles, fueling, things like that? We simply go in and we look at the highest fuel consumers in that fleet. Where are we going to get the most bang for our bucks? If I'm saving somebody $1.50 a gallon over diesel fuel, I want to take the truck asset that cost me X and is getting the most usage out of it first. So we're going to look at the high usage trucks first, and we're going to find a pathway for that customer to convert that fleet out over a 3 to 5 year period and make it all work for them.
So are you going to basically hold their hand and walk them through that process?
100%.
Right down to which truck goes first. As you were saying that, I was thinking of the analogy, and I'm thinking, okay, so I have a bunch of credit cards. I'm going to pay off that one with the highest interest rate first, and that's going to maybe help me, or do I take care of the little one first?
Absolutely. That's exactly how we look at that.
Okay.
Right? So for our customers, the things that are important, we need good fleet information. We need to know the age of your fleet, the age of each truck, how much fuel each one consumes, what your finance structure is like, what it's going to cost you to unravel that agreement and move into the next vehicle, right down to who you're going to get to help them take that used trade in, how the residual on the new trucks are going to be put together. All those things matter.
How does Opal approach? I presume you have back end operations too. I mean, are you creating RNG yourself, or how are you
we do, as a matter of fact. We're one of the largest, I would say, turnkey producers of renewable natural gas and station construction and field deployment in the country. We have approximately 8 million MMBTUs of RNG that we're producing today at landfills and dairy digesters, and another 5 million MMBTUs of that gas in project construction today. Roughly 150 million gallons will be online coming out of our facilities by the end of 2025 to deploy to our customers.
And so the total universe today is, call it 800 million gallons. So you've got a fair amount of that. Help me with one acronym you use, the MMBTU? Yeah.
One MMBTU is about 8 gallon equivalent of CNG.
Okay.
Or RNG.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good.
So both Derek Turbide and Scott Edelbach have told us about some of the opportunities and some of the challenges that are facing the natural gas build out. We've got about 1,600 public and private natural gas filling stations in the country. That may not sound like much, but this is not an industry that needs a station on every corner. But we are seeing growth, maybe 10% a year, according to Clean Energy. So as we look at what's happening around the infrastructure, we hope you got a good understanding and enjoyed the episode. Thanks for watching.